I feel like I was exhausted trying to keep up an act like I was okay, act like I was good enough, act like I, had it all together. But yet this was really leading to no joy, leading to no fulfillment, leading to no satisfaction. I actually kind of entered into a little bit of a season of depression, of just wanting to sleep all the time, of really not even really having any motivation or purpose. A lot of the times that was really had to do with just the unhealthy relationships with girls that I was coming out of. There was a huge addiction to pornography in that season. Pornography is one of the worst, the deepest senses of shame you can come across, in the sense of the distortion runs very deep. And then when I started following Jesus, it turned into the hiding of me not being able to be honest with anyone about the struggle. And I was in that place. I was in kind of that paradox of doing the things I didn't want to, and vice versa.
When you experience some kind of failure, or you're overwhelmed by some kind of challenge, or maybe you have a week where everything just kind of falls apart on you, there's this tendency to keep that a secret. We don't want people to see us for who we really are because we're afraid of rejection. So much of our identity comes from what other people think that we're scared to death of people discovering our struggles and who we really are and then rejecting us. But Jesus says in the Sermon on the Mount, "Blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God." Jesus doesn't say that God reveals himself to those who are perfect, or to those who could put on a good show, but to those who are pure in heart. That's authenticity language. It's the real you that he's looking for. So there's this tendency, when I get to the end of me, to want to hide. I don't want anyone to see me in my most vulnerable moment. And maybe you understand that. It's as old as Adam and Eve. We're afraid of what other people might think or what God might think, and so we hide. But because of Jesus, there is so much freedom that can be found when we finally just quit pretending and we get real. It turns out that God blesses the pure in heart. When we humble ourselves, when we're vulnerable, and when we're transparent, that's when we're truly loved and accepted.
I was at that place for months living with them. I felt like I was going to explode because I was holding so much in. And I finally got to the place where I was like, no, I need to tell people about this stuff. I'm not going to find healing unless I can really be honest with who I am and my failures and my shortcomings. Sitting in their living room, I don't think I've ever cried like that before, or maybe even to this day or any time. But basically, I just broke down, almost like an anxious breakdown, where I just, spilling about all the stuff that I was maybe ashamed of, or had hurt over, or had pain over. And I was fully expecting them to say, okay, great, thanks, that's cool, but now you need to leave. The first thing he said after a few seconds of pausing is said, hey, I've been there, hey, I understand what that's like. Hey, I've looked at that stuff too, and I know what shame feels like. I know what guilt feels like. And it just blew me away, right? That he was able to identify with me, not condemnation, but identification. And the biggest thing was really the life they spoke over me. They said, we love you, but ultimately also know that Jesus loves you. He's not surprised by this right now, right? Jesus actually has called you into new life in this moment. You can be authentic, right? You can be transparent. You can be vulnerable. And they really just offered healing in that. They opened the scriptures and they said, hey, look at this. Look what Jesus says. You get that too. And then Titus 2, I think, is, it says, for the grace of God has appeared to all men, training us to renounce ungodliness. The free, unmerited favor of God, something you don't have to work for, actually makes you train and work to say no to ungodliness. That's what grace is, though, right? It's like, yes, it is free. Yes, you can go do whatever you want. Yes, you might still go sinning, but if you've actually understood it, if it's actually impacted you, you never will, right? You'll truthfully go and say no to ungodliness because you now have that freedom and that power. I really felt like a weight off of my shoulders. I really felt like I was accepted and loved and fully known for probably one of the first times in my life, right? Where I felt like I was not hiding anymore. I remember sitting in that saying, man, why didn't I do this 6 months ago, right? Why wasn't I authentic right away?